I think it's working. And since it's going to sit up for a while, you're just going to watch me awkwardly go to my channel so I can figure that stuff out. Ooh, microphone fell down here. Sorry, my bad. We'll do that. That's probably next to awesome. Let me see. Going to my channel. Since I'm doing this live, if anybody wants to chat while I'm in here, we will check that out. Yeah, so vlog number 1, starting over. As you can tell by my awkward ability to not know what the hell I am doing, you can see why I'm starting over, because I don't know what I'm doing, and I am very much aware that I need help with this stuff. I'm just not seeing this. Aha, here it is, live now. So I should be able to watch all of this stuff. So if anybody chimes in or any of that stuff. So yeah, this video is for 2 people. I need to absolutely do a trailer for my channel. I've been thinking for a while about how to repurpose what I'm doing here anyway. So I will shoot something like that later. So in the meantime, this will have to serve as sort of a channel trailer, which 2 minutes of it is already me staring at another computer screen. So I'm really good at this. Hey, Richard, what's going on, man? So yeah, YouTube is a thing that I have been kind of involved with for a long time and don't really know what to do. Hey, Charlie, what's going on, brother? Good to see you, man. Basically, here's the short thing. This is for 2 people. One is for people who have no idea who I am, and that are new to this channel and maybe finding this, and then the second are people who have been following me for a long time. They're either fans of bands that I've played with or fans of mine, or family or friends or people who actually know me, like Charlie Korch, who's an amazing friend of mine and drummer in town who has played with my band many, many times. And we have a great time when we do get to work together, and it's been a little too long since we have. So, starting over, I have tried to start this video, I don't know, 10 times now in the last 2 months to sort of kickstart my reintegration into YouTube and vlogging and stuff, into my workflow, into my career, and just what I'm doing. I follow a lot of people online just to figure out, like, what are people doing? What do I like to watch? What's working for them? What do people not like to watch? And there's so many different things and so many different approaches to stuff that there's a whole lot of guitar content on the internet, and I've been struggling to find a thing that I think is worthy of being a part of that compendium of music and guitar related stuff on YouTube and Instagram and what have you. So I will say, if you're not subscribing to my channel, please subscribe to it. And I think I've got somewhere around 1,000 subscribers right now. My channel was monetized some time ago, and then it lost monetization because of the way that YouTube changed things. And that's about where I jumped off the last time, but more on that in a second. But please subscribe and share this video. I need to get my views up to get my channel back to monetized. And once it's monetized properly, then I can obviously make money off of my channel. The top chat will work. So there's a bunch of things that don't work at the moment because I'm not eligible for those things, because I got to hit a few benchmarks before YouTube will remonetize my channel. So I'm back on that pursuit of that. So starting over, really it's starting over in a couple of different ways. One, just dealing with YouTube and my video content. Years ago, probably 2009, 2010. I don't remember exactly when it was. Myself, my good friend Brian Cameron, who's an amazing guitar player, plays with John Barry right now, and played with another band called the Reluctant Saints, and he's been a staple in the Southeast for a long time. He's a fantastic guitarist, been a longtime friend and brother of mine. He and I, and at the time, local guitar builder Mike Delaney, who was a builder for Delaney Guitars, probably most well known for making Samantha Fish's signature guitar. He makes Mike Zito from the Royal Southern Brotherhood, and obviously Mike's solo band makes guitars for him, and tons of other people. He makes really amazing instruments that are sort of rustically based. So they're not relic instruments. They're beautifully handmade, solid body and semi-hollow electric guitars, but they have a much more rustic design to them, where you can feel the wood grain through the finish, kind of thing. Like, so thinner finishes. It's more about the aesthetic of raw wood and natural woods, and just letting the wood do its thing. He's really great at finding great tone wood. That's probably the number one thing I would say with Mike's guitars. They're really fantastic. In any case, Mike and Brian and myself in about 2009, 2010 teamed up with a friend of ours named G, who had an upstart business called Dirty South TV. And YouTube was not the big thing that it is now, obviously, back then, but it was pretty big. I think that's right about the time that Google either had bought it or whatever. I'm not really good on all the history of that stuff. But in any case, looks like I'm a little saturated there. Let's turn this camera down, or light down just a little bit. There, that's better. So what G was wanting to do with Dirty South TV was have a new platform online for streaming videos. And he really saw what he was creating as competition for YouTube. So he had done plenty of live streams with local bands in town, and I'd done several with him there. And this was a cool opportunity for a show, and we called it Wire and Wood. And it was going to be all about the philosophy of guitar and history of guitar building, playing, aesthetics that we liked, things that we looked for, setups, maintenance, so on and so forth. Just like sort of an everything guitar channel. And we shot several episodes. I don't know if they're here on YouTube. I should do a search for them. They were awkward and they were clunky, and we had a good time making them. And I thought at the time that we probably should have uploaded them simultaneously to YouTube as well. And we didn't do that because Dirty South TV was really trying to be a competitor of YouTube. So I think in one way that was a missed opportunity because of what YouTube has ultimately become. Thinking about everybody who's been a YouTuber since the late 2000s into the 2010 and on, the growth potential of subscribers and just the number of people on YouTube on a regular basis. It's like the number 2 search engine now, which is crazy. And I use it too. If I need to fix something on my car, it's the first thing I do is go to YouTube and put in a search. Or if I need to fix a leaky pipe, or a recipe, if I want to figure out how to cook something, or just anything. Like, YouTube is just a treasure trove of all kinds of information for everything that you would do on a regular basis. So it was a missed opportunity to get things over to YouTube. I totally understand the philosophy of why that happened, but in the end, we stopped with the Wire and Wood show, and there it laid for a while. The next thing I ended up doing after that was I would do some video uploads of gigs and stuff like that. There's a handful of things up there. Really not thoughtful about what I was doing with the content until I started talking with the guys over at Orange Amplification. And at the time, their warehouse was based here in Atlanta, and a good friend of mine was their national sales rep. And he's like, man, you should be making demonstration videos. And I used to do music retail sales here in Atlanta, Georgia for many years. I worked for Ken Stanton Music, and all the guys over at Ken Stanton are friends of mine, and Kenny's a good friend of mine and super supportive. But I learned how to do so much stuff working for Kenny. Hey, Martin, what's going on, brother? So I took a little bit of that into the videos that I was making at the time. for Orange videos is sort of demonstratory, like not like a proper, hey, this is a review, or hey, these are three things you need to know about this amp. It was sort of a, that amp right there, the OR15, is probably my most watched video. And it's the first one I did for Orange, and it was literally, hey, people ask me about how I use an amp in the studio or live, and that being a one channel amp was a good opportunity to do that and show off exactly how great that amp is. And it's been a staple in my stable pretty much since then. It's an amp I can't really live without. And since then, I did several other videos for them. I did the backspin guitar pedal. I've done the Crush series. I think the video that's first on my channel right now is for the Crush combo, which is another one of my most watched videos, probably because it's the first one on my channel. So I could probably swap that around a little bit. But along the way, I did several videos for them, for Fuchs Audio. I did several amp videos for them. I also did one or two for Jetter Gear pedals. And I wasn't really trying to grow necessarily a demonstrator channel, but trying to do something that's just part and parcel of my channel and use this as a vehicle for how do I continue to do things to get my music out there. Long story short on that, my channel now has somewhere in excess of 400,000 views on it, which to me is a lot because it's fairly organic. That's just people finding my videos, mainly on the Orange Amp videos, and watching them, which is fantastic. And I know for a lot of professional YouTubers, 400,000 views on a video, one single video, is maybe a decent showing for them, but their channels are, exponentially viewed. So I've got a long way to go before any of that stuff necessarily happens. And I don't know where YouTube really falls for me. I don't know if this becomes a professional YouTube channel, if it just becomes a part of my culture and another way to keep up with everything that I'm doing, and a way for me to sort of hold myself accountable to my friends and family and fan base, to sort of just keep up with everything that I'm doing. Because that does seem to be what content is all about. You either have something that you're selling, and all of us who are artists are selling the cult of personality. Like, this is literally what we do. We make music, we make records, we go on tour, we sell t-shirts, we sell mugs, we sell koozies, we sell whatever. So I think this is a good piece of that. I think education is probably one of the best things about YouTube. So I'm going to continue to do more educational stuff. And I do teach lessons over Skype. So maybe this is a good way to get some content out there for people who are maybe interested in studying with me for whatever. Maybe I've got some insight into some things, but also I can be a beacon to other really incredible channels that I follow that I think are, those are the ones that you should follow. I don't think there has to be 600 guitar instructional channels on YouTube. I don't think that's necessary, at least not full time. So I don't necessarily feel compelled to do that because there's so much good content out there that I agree with. So I would much rather be a beacon to point towards really great content, to help steer players towards really good information, and then maybe the information that I will do as guitar instruction or music theory or production type stuff will be much more philosophically tied to, this is what I do, this is how I look at it. These things I found very useful to me, sort of a very practical approach to a lot of things, in all manner of things, not just from a guitar performance thing. I still travel a lot, so there are the trappings of what do you do when you're traveling, and how do you navigate all of that stuff with, what's a good fly rig versus what's, the rig of doom, sort of what's the Death Star when you get to bring out all of that stuff, and what's a good studio recording rig, and why don't I have a fractal, or why would I want to get a fractal, or why do I stay in the world of tube amps and then use like the Universal Audio aux amp top box thing, or an Apollo, or things like that. So this channel is going to be a lot about the culture of just what I do, and I've figured that content is really just whatever I'm doing. And that seems to be what I'm gleaning from most of the channels that I watch. And probably the one I watch the most is Rick Beato's. I've known Rick for several years. Not super well, but I've had the benefit of getting to work at Rick's studio several years ago, when we were working on some stuff with Stuck Mojo because he and Rich Ward are friends. He has a really amazing studio here in town and just amazing equipment. So definitely go check out Rick's channel. And he's really dedicated to the educational component of his channel. And I would definitely say it's not just for guitar players. Everybody that plays music and studies music can learn something because his theory is vast. And I'm a theory guy. I studied theory in college and I got my degree in it. And theory is one of those things where it explains things that exist. So there's some things that are very well defined, and then there's just, well, why would you want to know such a thing? And Rick is really great at not just demonstrating what something is, but how you would use that, why you would want to use that. And then beyond that, production techniques. He's such a brilliant producer and engineer, knowing all of that stuff. Um, can I share a link to his page? Yeah, I believe. Well, actually, I will do that after this. But I think if you just look up, if you just do a YouTube search for Rick Beato, he'll pop up. He's got a couple of channels. One he does all live streaming on, and then the other one is all his content where he's got like some 800 videos up now. But Rick Beato, Beato, silver haired dude. You'll know when you find him. I watch his channel every day. I'll watch everything he puts up because he's so brilliant at it. And I think he has a very kinetic sort of approach to what he wants to do. With his theory stuff, it's great because he's got a book that he's written that I own. And I recommend everybody buy it because it's a brilliant theory book called the Beato book. And I'm a sucker for all things theory anyway, so I buy tons of theory books. And his is fantastic, and it's a little guitar centric, but I think if you're just a theory person, you're going to get a lot out of it because it's all so well thought out. So he's kind of using YouTube as a way to do the video component of every bit of information that is in his book. So it's fascinating and brilliant to do that, but he gets to be a little bit kinetic, like with his talks of whatever he wants to do, whatever he's motivated to do. And so right now I'm in a position where really everything I'm doing is back to playing music full time. I took a few years off, and I guess that's the next part of my starting over, and how this platform of YouTube may allow me to create some interesting content, and as well as sort of document, the process of what am I doing and how am I doing it with the different bands that I work for, or the different clients that I work for, or different students that I'm working with, my next musical endeavors with my records and stuff like that, and also turning highlights on to people that I know and love and get to play with, because there's a lot of problems in the music industry at large right now, and I think a big piece of that is not surprisingly in a lot of cities around at least the United States, people aren't going to venues much anymore. And I know some of that for me is part of the culture of I haven't been out, and out of sight out of mind. That's certainly a thing that I have to work back on that, but the culture has really changed. When I was a kid and I was a guitar nerd and learning how to do stuff and wanting to get into being a professional, I went to clubs to see people play because I wanted to see everything about the culture that was anything. How does all this stuff work? What are people doing? So on and so forth. So that was a really important piece of all this. And now, I don't think it's that people aren't interested in music. I just don't think they're interested in music in the same way because the internet has afforded a lot of convenience. You can literally stream videos and concerts on your phone or on your iPad or on your tablet or your computer or your smart TV. It's incredible. You don't have to go out for this stuff. You can literally bring it to you, which is a problem for me because I have a bit of social anxiety and it's hard to get me out of the house anyway. So that's a bit daunting. And I've seen a shift from 2014, 2015 when my band doing my instrumental thing and my other band, the Dreaded Marco, were playing a lot more locally, and just the types of audiences we were drawing out. And a few years later now, just like how that shifted. And some of it is like I'm 45 years old now. Most people that are 45 years old are in this immediate Oort cloud of my age group that, when you're 25 and everybody's young and don't have, major careers going on and little children at home that they need to be responsible for, and going out is a much bigger part of the culture. But then once you have, you get married, you get your career on track, and you have children, the responsibility of everyday life certainly changes that. And I know so many friends who would still love to come out and support. They just can't. They can't come out on a Wednesday night and hang out until midnight when they've got to be up at 5:30 in the morning to get their kids ready for school and get themselves ready for work and all of that stuff. It's just not a practical lifestyle anymore. So you have to be tied into a younger culture for that bit of a crowd. And I know I'm a little disconnected from it, just in the very way that I've not been getting out. So when I do have the opportunity to play with musicians that I love, who've been friends of mine for so long, the conversation has been, well, how can we capitalize on opportunities to play without it necessarily needing to be this Herculean thing to try to get people into a venue? Well, YouTube is a venue, and I endeavor to make this my venue in a way that I can shed a light on people that I love and musicians that I love, and hopefully at least introduce their culture to my culture to you guys, to where hopefully we can spread a little bit more knowing of just some amazing people and musicians and the music that they make, and how I make music with them, because it is very different. I'm very fortunate that I get to play with so many different people, and I'm very well aware of how different personalities and their musical styles influence the way that I make decisions as a player and working with them. And I think that's something that is uniquely lost in some modern music, where everything is so Pro Tools based, and I'm a Pro Tools engineer, or Logic based. But basically, we end up making records like electronic dance music, where you're building tracks up, and layering them one at a time. You don't get the luxury of musicians playing all in the same room together, and that's a problem for me because I can't afford that. To go into a good room where tracking is affordable, I just don't have it. And every time, do I cuss a lot? I actually do cuss a lot. And you can probably tell that because I struggle with my words and I say a lot, because I'm probably right on the cusp of saying something very untoward. Well, thank you, thank you. This is also part of the starting over beard. I guess I'll back up and I'll do some more specific videos on a little bit of philosophy and personal stuff, because there's some things that I need to get out that people have been wanting to know about me, for why I disappeared and all of that stuff. But I did a thing. Oh, listen to me. I play everything. I play metal to world music to jazz to classical and everything. I'm just a musician. I play all kinds of music. I love aggressive music. I love metal, but I'm very fortunate. I get to play a lot of stuff. Oh, nice, nice. I'm answering Vincent's uh, pop up chats here. Yeah, rock and hip hop is great. I used to be in a band called Stuck Mojo, which was sort of metal and hip hop mashed up together, which is pretty cool. And one of the corporate bands that I play with now is a band called Jesse's Girls, and it's a great gig for me. But we play all over the country. We do a lot of different corporate type events, plus weddings and stuff like that. And we play everything from like Motown to very modern trap and stuff like that. But anytime we get to the hip hop stuff, sort of that inner, you know, urge to do the thing that I did with Stuck Mojo sort of pops out, because it's just got such a great energy for all of that. So I get to have a little bit of fun with that. No, I do not ride a motorcycle. Not because I don't like motorcycles. I love motorcycles, and I keep thinking about buying one because some of my best friends ride motorcycles. But I just know I will probably hurt myself, because I am not athletically gifted, and being able to deal with a heavy motorcycle is not something I'd probably be very good at. I would probably stop at a light and lay it down right on my leg. I would love to. But the reason I also don't have Harleys is because I keep buying computers and guitars and stuff like that. So the whole music component thing definitely keeps me from buying motorcycles. So yeah. Anyway, so Sunday night, after getting back from an event in Nashville, I was asked by my friend Jimmy Broderick, who is the singer for a band called A Slow Boat to China. He was signed up to play at a Chris Cornell tribute thing that was going to be, it was funding for a place in Athens, Georgia called Nucci's Space, which is all about suicide awareness and prevention and mental health issues for musicians and artists and stuff like that, which a lot of us suffer with. And his Matt Hansen, the guitar player for A Slow Boat to China, couldn't be there, so he asked me to play, and we played "Can't Change Me." Basically, the thing for that tribute, they've done it. I think it's the third year they've done it. This year they did all of the songs off of Euphoria Morning, so we did "Can't Change Me," um, and it was great, and it was so good to see so many friends from the scene playing in town, and some guys that I've known for a long time that I've never had a chance to see play because I'm always playing. So it was a really great event, a really great night. Um, but it was kind of bittersweet for me. And I told this very short story of, when I hit my wall with my mental health issues, a lot of it was this is the career part of my starting over. And I'll try to keep this a bit brief without getting into too much detail. But I try to explain this to people that I grew up with because I was that kid that my mom is a musician. She started me playing the violin when I was 3. Um, oh, nice. Vincent is 19 and he drives a Dodge. Um, that's great. I drive a Jeep, which kind of helps satiate that need for a big motor with big tires. Hey, brother, good to see you. Prometheus in the house. Um, so yeah, so I started violin when I was 3 years old. My mom is an opera singer, and the music director at our church. Yeah, it's crazy. Like it was the Suzuki method. So if you don't know anything about Suzuki method, it's a way of teaching tiny, tiny little kids how to hold the instrument before they get a real instrument, and then it's a lot of ear training for very young kids. And because my mom was the choir master at our church, I was always at church because she couldn't afford a babysitter all the time. So I ended up singing in choir. I don't know how many masses a weekend, like every weekend for years and years and years and years and years, both children choir and stuff like that. Um, yeah, man, thank you. Have a good evening teaching, and let's catch up soon, man. I want to talk to you about your record that just came out because it sounds great, but we'll talk about that. Um, so anyway, um, choir, violin. I think my violin teacher ended up running away with a guy who played in the symphony, which is partly why I stopped studying violin so seriously at that particular time. Piano was a thing for me for a bit, but really when I discovered the guitar, I like that was the thing that I would stare at guitars when I would see them on television or if they were at somebody's house or anything like just completely mesmerized by the entire idea of a guitar. Um, I can't really describe it, and I'm still that way when I see guitars. I want to play them. I want to look at them. Like cheap guitars, expensive guitars, vintage guitars, quirky guitars, weird guitars, traditional guitars. Like I love them so much. There's just something about that really speaks to me. Um, so when my parents finally got me a guitar when I was 11. I could already read music. My ear training was pretty strong, so I could literally just listen to the radio and start to figure out tunes. My parents could buy me music books, and I could start to teach myself. So the first couple of years of guitar for me was transcribing and self study, and I got a pretty good way. And partly because my dad had a deal with me that if I had this really terrible, I think it was called a Mach 1, weird looking Strat guitar as my first electric guitar. And the deal was he would get me a decent one if I could learn to play that one. So I think I learned to play that one in record time. Didn't know anything about how to change the setup on the guitar or anything like that. So like the action was super high and like I just suffered with it. Like I made it happen. But in any case, everybody who knew me from being that kid knew that I was kind of just on a trajectory. This is just I'm on a straight path, and I am just I'm doing it. Like this is my way. This is my world, and this is my life. And the study of music was everything. Playing the guitar was everything. Being in bands was everything. I started playing professionally when I was 14. Just 3 years after getting a guitar, I got my first professional gig. At 15, I started playing in bars with a rock band, and I was the young guy in the rock band around New England. And we played frat parties, we played bars, we played everywhere. We did everything, and everybody else in the band was already out of high school. They were from 18 to 21, 22 years old. And I just feel for me that I just kind of had this fire in my engine that was just burning, that I could just go and go and go and go. And I've started over several times. By the time I got out of high school, I was studying music one way that was very much centered on Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Eric Johnson and Jason Becker and Marty Friedman and guys like that. And then by 1992, 93, the scene changed to grunge, which I loved grunge because it was sort of the anti really terrible hair metal stuff. But then the way the music industry just kind of swept everything else under the rug and it all became grunge. Like if you could play guitar solos, nobody wanted to hear you. So it was at that point I went to college, starting over again. I'll go ahead and finish my education at this point. I had studied at a music conservatory, classical guitar and jazz guitar at the Concord Community Music School while I was in high school. It was a great time in my life. I also studied with a brilliant guitarist, Tom Yoder, in Myrtle Beach while I was later in high school, who he had studied at GIT when it was a pretty relatively new program, and he imparted the wisdom and the secrets of the universe to me. I always joke about going to Dagobah to study with Tom Yoder because he really is a Jedi, and he's one of my lifelong friends. He's a brilliant musician, brilliant guitarist, composer, engineer, everything. He's a wealth of inspiration and just compassion in my life that I can't say enough good things about him. But in any case, um, college was great for that. And then by the time I got out of college, like I had been working, but it was cover bands and classical guitar gigs and jazz guitar gigs, just anything I could do to keep working, teaching a lot, just to try to stay in the zone of working as a musician. I was never scared to get a job. Like I've worked at Burger King, I've worked at Hardee's, I've worked at tobacco farms, I've worked as a landscaper, I've worked as a carpenter's apprentice. Like I've never been scared to take a job to keep the bills paid when there wasn't enough paying music work going on. Um, and I was very fortunate when I got out of college that um, I got hired back into Ken Stanton here in Atlanta and was doing guitar sales again, but also teaching, and I was also gigging a lot. The gigging I was doing then was a lot more blues, jam band, southern rock kind of stuff, which was pretty good for me. I didn't really listen to too much metal other than the bands that I liked. I liked Tool, I liked Metallica, I liked Dream Theater, I liked progressive stuff, and I kept up with that stuff. But I really didn't think I'd be doing any of that. The record that I was planning on making in the early 2000s was nothing like what 2 of 5 ended up becoming. Um, and then the reason that 2 of 5 became what it was is because I got a great opportunity when I joined Fozzy. And if you don't know, Fozzy is a band that is basically it's Chris Jericho, who's a very famous entertainer and wrestler and musician, actor. He's been into tons of stuff, and Rich Ward, who was the one of the founding members of the band Stuck Mojo. So it's a cool metal thing that they were doing with that, and it was right at a point in their career where they had a great guitar player. His name's Ryan Malum, who was making a change in his career. So they needed a guy, but it also happened at the same time that Rich was making a turn. He had been wanting to do something with his solo career, and he created the Duke Band, and he had been doing demos with Rick Beato, of all people, that are brilliant. And the culmination of that ended up in a record that we finished called My Kung Fu Is Good. And it's an amazing record. If you can find it online someplace, it was released on Spitfire Eagle Rock, and Universal bought Spitfire and Eagle Rock. So after we did one tour for it after the release, the record's been shelved since then. So it's like the heartbreak of all heartbreaks. They're constant along the way, but I think that was sort of the thing. I started playing with Fozzy at the time when they were making a transition from doing more covers like they were in the early part into doing a 100% original record, which Rick Beato produced. and I came in after that. It was already recorded. Ryan had played on it, but also Marty Friedman played on it. Mark Tremonti played on it. Zach Wilde played on it. Miles Kennedy sang on it. Like, it's a great record. All that remains, um, and that started a whole process of, you know, playing with Fozzy was my first opportunity to be in a music video that actually got played on MTV when MTV still played music videos. It was also on Fuse all over the world. And we traveled all over the world supporting that record. We did a live record in Australia. We shot a DVD that unfortunately never got released, which is a shame because it was a really fun tour and that band was really great. Um, and along the way, Rich also did stuff with reintegrating Stuck Mojo, and I ended up getting pulled into that. Um, but at the time that I jumped off of that train in 2009, 2010, when I started thinking about the YouTube thing, I got a deal with Steve Vai and his record label for Digital Nations. So that was another way of starting over, picking up what I was wanting to do with all of that. And Martin just put up a comment there. Um, it was definitely a thing. And then somewhere along the way, I kind of lost my self confidence, and I think a lot of it has to do with the circumstances of me leaving Fozzy and just family stuff that was going on. And that's going to be a much longer video for another time um, to get into just the personal stuff of that, which is why I've also been so quiet. It's not so much that there's any great drama or story to talk about, me and Chris having a falling out or me and Rich having a falling out. It was a difficult time and there were difficult conversations and it went the way that it went and it was not something that I was able to stop. And it took a few years to repair that and we're all good and everything's great. As a matter of fact, I've seen the guy several times since then and I was in another band that opened for Fozzy some years ago. Like so it's all love and it's all family. But moreover, just the things that were going on with my immediate family, and just not wanting to be so public about the things that were going on with my family and why that was such a difficult time in my life and why things went the way that they went and decisions that I made along the way. But my self confidence, which has always been shaky, um, at this particular point, even though I had just gotten a deal with Steve Vine, it seemed like I was on a good place where now I can really do something with my music. That I'm in control of the helm, and 205 got another breath of life interjected into it after I'd initially released it in 2006. When I did release it, my CD release was opening for Joe Bonamassa in Atlanta. Like I've had a good plan and I've had good opportunities for it that somewhere along the way, either just because I'm self managing and I don't always know what to do, and the worst thing about not knowing what to do, coupled with I don't have the self esteem or the self confidence to push past certain barriers when I need to. I've been really bad in my career of like getting up against a wall and just stepping back because I don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. Because I don't think necessarily my work is worth being so aggressive and pushy with. Because there's so and art is it's just one of those things. Anytime you try to tie art to commerce, you end up coming up with particular problems. So I was trying to start over again after starting over in the 90s and finishing college and then starting over after college and then finding my way and that led me to Fozzy and getting to actually do more record label stuff, which I've done a little bit, but only touring around the US and now doing proper tours and going around the country and television and lots of stuff. Like it's a really amazing time in my life and a world class education in the music industry, at least as it existed from 2004 to 2010. Um, and that led me to some successes, but ultimately the greatest of heartbreaks. The deal with Vi was wonderful. It's the one record company that I've been affiliated with as a writer that has paid me. Um, and I know that's symptomatic throughout the industry, but like quarterly, Favored Nations always paid me my royalties, and even though we ultimately didn't sell as many records as I think Favored Nations would have liked to have, and I certainly know I would have liked to have sold more. Um, it was a very good business relationship. I was sad to see that deal go. I was sad to see that subsidiary of the label go because it was a lot of great opportunities. I got to open for Vi. I got to meet Vi. He came and he came to GemFest 10 in down in Florida in Orlando and watch all of us crazy guys perform. And I got to have an amazing conversation with him that I will cherish for the rest of my life because he's such a brilliant and wonderful guy, and very thoughtful. Like, it's one thing for to know somebody's at your show. There's been plenty of people that have come and seen me play over the years, especially with Fozzy, because we did enough high visibility gigs to where I got to meet a lot of people who were heroes of mine. And but Steve Vai, in some ways, is a hero in a different way. Like, he was the guy that inspired me to get a degree in music theory and composition because it seemed like if you wanted to be really imaginative with what you're doing, you need to write a piece of music that's compelling. There's plenty of great guitar playing out there, but great guitar playing doesn't necessarily mean great music. And I consistently keep coming back to Steve's music because it's compelling. I think he writes interesting music, and I think because of that, he plays interesting guitar. It's not always just fodder for a great guitar solo. He's very thoughtful. He's very brilliant with his arranging and his orchestrational ideas, and that stuff is very inspiring to me in a different way. As much as I would love to be a gunslinger like Steve, I don't play like Steve, and I certainly don't write like Steve. But sort of the permission that his inspiration gave me to find ways of writing and and finding my way, finding my note, as he likes to call it, is a tremendous thing. But through that, I ended up joining a band called Agent Cooper, which I had been in before, years before I had joined Fozzy, and maybe the direct reason that I ended up in Fozzy because the bass player for Agent Cooper was also in Fozzy. Um, and it was around that time that we were looking for something that was going to tour and get after stuff. And I felt like it was a good time. Like, Porcupine Tree was doing really well, and Steven Wilson had released a record, and like it was doing really well, and it seemed like progressive music had a cut, especially if something had a bit more pop sensibility, not progressive metal, but something that was more art rock, much more inspired by maybe stuff like Jellyfish and Kevin Gilbert and Steven Wilson and groups like that were not necessarily worried about being the heaviest thing in the world. And if there were heavy moments, it was because they were necessary for the art. And we put out a brilliant record called Far From Sleep. And we did a handful of shows around Atlanta. Atlanta's not very much of a progressive town, but it did lead us to doing a tour around Europe, opening for Tony McAlpine. Um, in part because Tony at the time was touring on a record that he had released on Vi's label, and I was on Vi's label, and there was a nice confluence of, hey, this will get the label behind, supporting the whole thing. Even though Agent Cooper was not on Vi's label, my association with the band and Vi and Tony and all of that was a beautiful thing. In the end of all of that stuff, I know we all spent a lot of money on that tour, and it was again one of the most incredible tours of my life. I'll never forget it. Tony's such an amazing guy, an amazing person and musician and guitar player. I get to work so closely with him every day is inspiring beyond inspiring. But that's right at the end of 2012 where we finish Far From Sleep, and just my drive had pushed so hard to where they yeah, Sean Delson, man. Oh yeah, I talk to him all the time. It was his birthday Monday. Was it his birthday Monday? No, a week ago Monday was Sean Delson's birthday. So yeah, yeah, we absolutely keep in touch. Um, I think we just kind of burned it out. Like, I was pushing for the next thing because I needed the next thing to happen, and I think everybody was getting rubbed the wrong way by my obsessive need to continue moving forward. So you get to early 2013 where, I think it was the best thing for them that I step away and the best thing for me that I step away. But it left a hole of what am I going to do now? So I started working on releasing some singles. That's when I started thinking, also in part, what I started doing more with the YouTube channel and doing the Orange videos and stuff like that. I released a Christmas song called "O Come, O Come, Emmanuel" as a single. Basically, just trying to take everything that I've been doing and learning as an engineer and a producer in Pro Tools to like, what can I do if I'm just left alone? If I'm just going to do a thing, what would I do? So O Come, Emmanuel is 100% I did everything. I programmed all the drums, I played all the instruments, I did all the arranging. I mixed it to probably 80% and then took it to my good friend Brian Stevens' place. And he cleaned up my mix on the mistakes that I made and did a mastering job for me. And that's as it exists out there now. So you can get that. And then it wasn't long after that that I released another single called "Wherever You Are," and that was a little bit after I had joined the band The Dreaded Marco, which is a band that I had done shows with as Agent Cooper, opening up for them. Um, Longtime friends of mine, Dixie Duncan was the guitar player at the time, Charlie Sheets the singer, Scott Williams the bass player, and Mike Froge, the drummer, who's known for Double Drive, Black Label Society, played with Blood Simple, played with I Empire, he's played with everybody. So it was a nice collective of friends. When Dixie stepped away from The Dreaded Marco is when they asked me to step in. We did a record called Safe Word and put that out in 2014. That is the last full record that I have been a part of releasing. I've guested on a Greg Morrow record that's out there someplace. I also guested on another song by some artists out of Tennessee. Um, that I need to get my website redone so I can put all this stuff up so where people can get that. I produced an EP for another local artist named Kristen Tinsley, um, who does a lot of shows with Dave Honorado. Dave Honorado was on the Wire and Wood show a lot in 2009, 2010. Dave Honorado now also is very often on Rick Beato's channel doing the chats there, and he has a company here in Atlanta called Dojo Guitar Repair, and he's getting more active on YouTube and Instagram. You should totally look him up and see what he's up to. And if you're a guitar player in need of repair, like, you should absolutely take your stuff to him. I'm going to be doing a series of videos with him because my guitars in the last few years, since I've not been working a whole lot, I've kind of let them go into a bit of disrepair. Which is not to say they're terrible. For the most part, I do all of my own setups and stuff like that, so they're playing well. But just there's more fret wear on stuff, and I've been wanting to do a thing on these are my guitars and these are the things that I've done to them, and this is why I love them. So I'm going to use the opportunity of going through Dave working on my guitars, to do like a little spotlight special on this is what's happening with my instruments. But that, in the end, really gets me to 2015. So 4 years ago now, I've got nothing more than a couple of singles they're not really new anymore, and an album that's not really new anymore with Dreaded Marco. And I don't have my record deal with Steve Vai anymore. I don't have a touring band that I'm going out with. I did get picked up to do one tour. Forget what year it was, maybe 2014. I think it was that year, summertime. I did a tour on the Guitar Gods tour. I got to open for Yngwie Malmsteen, Bumblefoot, Gary Hoey. I was playing with a band called King Naldo for that tour. Crazy tour, crazy fun. So glad I got to do it. It was crazy. But that was probably the last good run out there, and then I've just kind of hit a wall. So I've decided to take a step back at that particular point. Um, I've had management out of Nashville that ultimately, I know he was trying to get me a lot of work, and he was trying to help me figure out what to do with the rest of my career. Um, there were some audition opportunities he couldn't quite make happen, and just trying to get me hired for stuff. I think just somewhere along the way, I've not been a sellable product as a musician, and I know he struggled with that, and I struggled with that, and certainly my self esteem took a good hit from just nobody wanting to hire me for stuff. So unfortunately, I am no longer represented with Dave Lowry out in Nashville. Great guy, great musician, great dude. I was a bad artist for him because I just don't think I was something that he was going to be able to do much with. He tried to find me work that I didn't want to do, and you know, just to keep bills paid, and it just wasn't the right thing. So I stepped away from all of that. I made a conscious decision to stop everything that I was doing, um, and focus on the next thing, which was to work on my next record, which I've talked about on this channel before. It's called Drive, and it is very specifically, it is about that same thing, that trying to analyze that, what is that drive that I've had since I was a kid that has pushed me to this point, because it's been that straight line trajectory, and though life stuff keeps happening that kind of derails what you thought you were going to do, like what's the axiom, you know, how do you make God laugh? Tell him your plans. I think there's a bit of that, like there's life is what happens while you're making plans. It's kind of the thing. So I really focused on that record, and it was bits of writing that I'd been collecting. I constantly write, but it's little bits here and there and here and there and here. And I assembled all of these ideas that I'd been grappling with over many years, and the culmination is Drive. It's 20 compositions. It's over 2 hours long, and it is programmatic. So it's a concept record of sorts, but it's more art music in that it's programmatic. There are themes that interplay between disparate compositions, that, and you'll understand it when you hear it. But I worked very hard on demoing that thing out, and then realized that this is a mammoth undertaking, not just for the amount of time it is, but for the variety of different musical material that I was assembling for this. That there was not going to be one way to record this. That this was going to be the biggest challenge ever. If anybody has heard the song Wormwood that I recorded with Fozzy, it's a 14-minute progressive metal song that is symphonic, and I recorded my family as the choir, and it's not exactly the kitchen sink. It's the kitchen sink that I could come up with writing for Fozzy. It still needed to be a Fozzy tune, so I spared the rod on a lot of stuff because I wanted it to be something not only that the fans would like, but something that we could ultimately perform. I really wanted to be able to perform it. And that's a hard thing to do, especially given at the time, Fozzy at the time, even though we were doing headlining stuff, we would do anywhere from a 60 to a 75-minute set. So for me as the hired gun in Fozzy, you know, I was never a part owner of Fozzy. Like I was always a hired gun in the band. For Fozzy to take 14 minutes out of their set time to include, you know, something that I had written, co-wrote it with Chris. Chris wrote all the lyrics for it. Was probably something that was not going to happen. So I wanted to give it its best chance for something that we could perform on the occasion when we did have longer sets, whether it was a 75-minute set or a 90-minute set someplace. I really wanted that to happen. And like all of us are such huge Maiden fans that, you know, if Maiden can do the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, we could certainly perform Wormwood. But it was the kitchen sink in terms of thematic playground, things coming back and forth, and how thematically tied things are to one another, but also being sort of multi-motivic even throughout that thread of like, here are the couple of themes that I'm playing with, and still finding a way to spurn these multi-movements out of it. I'm very proud of the piece of music. I don't think it's out right now. They've signed a couple of different record deals. I don't think they have a licensing deal on Chasing the Grail, so I don't think it's on Spotify. It is on my SoundCloud channel, so you can listen to it there if you do a search for me on SoundCloud. Then you can listen to it there. And I think some fans have put it up on YouTube as well. So it's listenable. It's out there. But I know the record is not available. It's not on iTunes or anything. So Drive is really, if you thought that was me being clever, this is me basically without anybody to tell me what I can't do, pushing the limits of my own composition, but also try to be very thoughtful in the arrangement of it. I wanted this record to be something that is inspiring to play. This is not a shred record. 205 was not a shred record. I don't think I have it in me to put on a shred record, even though I get accused of being a shred guitar player all the time, and I can see that from the stuff that I've done with Fozzy, that my reputation certainly get out there for that stuff. I certainly like that kind of aggressive guitar playing. but ultimately, when it comes time for me to write a song, I'm more interested in the arrangement, the themes, the orchestration of the thing than it just being fodder for here's the epic guitar solo. There's spots for it there, but I think they're for 2 hours of music they're going to be farther and fewer between. So if you're looking for just an overwhelming amount of notes, it's not going to be that. I'm also trying to be smart in the fact that I write guitar music, and guitar is still one of the most popular instruments on the planet, and guitar music is still super popular, even among people who don't play the guitar. So I wanted to write a record that people who enjoy guitar music will listen to, that aren't going to. I know people who don't play guitar that listen to Alan Holdsworth and are like, I feel like I'm just listening to math. I feel like I'm listening to logarithms. And I get that. Like, I find the passion of what Holdsworth did. Um, but I understand if you're not a musician, why that might not be the thing, which probably explains why an artist like Pat Metheny is so much more popular. Um, Not just among guitar players, but among people who love jazz and people who love guitar music as a listener. There is a I don't necessarily want to put Pat Metheny into the box of he's palatable because he's very complex and I love what he does, but I think the medium that Pat Metheny and the Pat Metheny group and all the other ensembles that Pat plays in, I think lend themselves to being able to do very complex things in a way that is not just, hey, this is me playing with a whole bunch of distortion and, dealing with the just that one singular emotional component of that. I think the best thing about being Pat Metheny is that he gets to explore all the territories that he wants to and all the different facets of his emotional um, perspectives as much as he wants to. So I'm enamored and completely inspired by that kind of emotional, passionate playing that guys like Pat Metheny get to do. So this record probably has a bit more of a leaning, and again, just like I don't sound like Steve Vai, I don't sound anything like Pat Metheny either. I don't know what I sound like, and hopefully it sounds like me after all of this time. Hopefully I've found whatever that voice is, that whatever the young vestiges of just needing to show people that I can play the guitar and needing validation in that. I'm hoping that I'm beyond that. And what I'm most interested in now is I would really like to release music that means something compelling to people when they hear it, that it resonates with them emotionally, not just in a melancholy way or in a depressed kind of way, which I know we as artists are all attracted to, but in a joyful way. Um, when I get responses to some of the music that I've released, like there's a song on 205 called Living the Good Life, and it's probably the most positive tune I've ever written. Like the resonance that I get back from people that I did what I set out to do with that. I think I encapsulated a bit of that feeling of joy for me that was pure, and I was able to put that out there because when people remark to me about what that song means to them, it resonates a joyful place with them too, and that's overwhelming and powerful to me as a writer to get that. And I have friends through the years now who have gone through cancer treatments and they've beaten cancer, and a tune like Peace Be With You is one of those meditative things that resonated with them, that it became a part of their playlist while they were going through chemo treatments and things like that. And when you start thinking about how your music becomes a part of the soundtrack of people's lives beyond ourselves. Oh man, thanks, Richard. I'm glad you're still enjoying that. Um, that's completely humbling, and I think that's where an artist, where I'm trying to straddle the line, is like enough self confidence. Nice timing, timing. This is the right thing to do. What's funny is right before I went to start this video, Rick Beato, and I'll just keep extolling my love of Rick Beato forever. He put out a short video on the most important day for him, and it was about the day that he put up his first video, um, and just sort of cataloged a little. He just opined a little bit about just his journey of when he uploaded his first video to the encouragement that Rhett Shull gave him to really do it, and how he kind of stumbled and learned and stumbled, and like why it was important for him to take a turn because he needed to start over in another way with his career. And he was completely successful as a producer. He could start producing records again right now and be successful at it, but he personally needed to make a turn. And the inspiration of that video of, you know, Rick is a little bit older than me. I think he's 54, I'm 45. Um, like the fear of what the hell am I going to do at 45 years old? I was never cute when I was young, and now because of this crazy depression beard that when I stopped working, I I grew this beard, and it was through an episode that was very dark, and I've alluded to it several times in several videos. But I attempted suicide, and it was not a good day. But I survived that day, and I've survived every day since. And some of the seriousness of that was right after I finished all the demos for my record, Drive, and that's the record that I stopped working on. That is the record that I stopped doing all work on because all of that pressure that I was putting to bear on myself led me to that dark place. And that's not the place that this needs to be. That record needed to be me working through my emotional stuff to deal with whatever my demons are, whatever my ego is, whatever my passion is, whatever my failings are, whatever my insecurities are. That record was supposed to be exactly that. And staring into that deep dark hole, um, it was too much. It was too much. And since that year, um, I did a handful of things. It's not like I haven't played. I'm going to upload a bunch of videos from a few years ago where I have this band called the New Yankee All Stars, and we did a residency at a blues club called Darwin's, and we were not playing blues. And basically, what we did is we did 100% spontaneous composition, and it was me trying to work out my emotional diarrhea, for lack of a better term, of just, and we would always do these spontaneous composition things, but I wanted to test that of whatever my emotional state was, we deal with it every night. So I have some 40 hours of live stream stuff that I did on Facebook that I'm going to upload here to YouTube that is the dealing with that. And some of it's very humorous and whatever. And it kind of had to be because I was in a very dark place. And I kind of just needed to let whatever happen happen. And I don't think I could have even been out of the house at that particular point if it wasn't for John McKnight and John Schwanke encouraging me to do that, and being willing to do such a dangerous, spontaneous, like we don't know what Mike's going to do, and I would just show up, and they would just have to deal with whatever my emotional state was in the moment. Um, so I have that. It's documented. It's going to be out there, and we did that for a good while. Like I said, 40 hours of that stuff. I'm going to start uploading it soon. Um, I've also been playing in a corporate band called Jesse's Girls. I mentioned that, and we've been all over the country. I've been with them for 3 years now. So right about all of this time, when I was about to give up everything, I got a call from Dan Overheim, who was a student of mine, and he was their front of house engineer. They needed a guitar player to fill in on some stuff, and I became their backup guitar player, and along the way, I have now become their full time guitar player, which is fantastic. So in those 2 years, other than that, over 2 years of that to get the pressure off of the music industry stuff, and this is kind of, I'll try to wrap up on this. I just needed to focus on something that was not so existential because I liken all of this to, it's not a midlife crisis that I'm having. It's not that I haven't been doing the thing that I know I'm meant to do. Is that I'm feeling all of this frustration in the universe and the world around me of why isn't this working? Why isn't this happening? Why am I not seeing enough of the positive results? I'm not trying to be famous. I'm not trying to be rich. I'm just trying to complete a thought and take care of my family. And failing to take care of your family is probably the number one thing of, feeling like the biggest failure in life. So I took a job. A good friend of mine, Kevin Watford, who's a drummer, he played in the band Gonzalez, um, and he plays for a band called Bigfoot now. He's been a friend for years. He's the manager of a screen printing company. Um, he hired me just to get a job. I just took a job that I knew was a safe place. And yeah, like part of my brain is like, yeah, it's screen printing. Musicians sell T-shirts, so I'll get an employee discount on T-shirts. So yeah, but along the way, like I haven't released any great T-shirt designs or anything like that. I never quite got around to doing that stuff. But it was a good job for 2 years. I did it for exactly 2 years. And I was only going to do it for 1 year, but I did it for 2 years because I thought I had another opportunity there that was a distraction, and I had to let go of that because ultimately this is what I need to be doing, and I know that. Um, but after my suicide attempt, what I needed was a job where I wasn't working for myself, where I wasn't dealing with the anxiety of making a decision, just being responsible to show up to where people counted on me to do my job. They didn't need to know that I was in that dark place. They just needed to know that I was there doing my job. And it's one of the best things that I've done. So if you're a person that's struggling and you deal with depression, you've had these kind of thoughts of self harm, be around people. And I know how impossible it is to be around people because I struggle with it still to this day. I'm not saying I'm 100% better. It's a day to day. I struggle and I fight and I'm trying to find my way through all of these things. But that job put me in a place where every day I got up, I knew what I was supposed to do. My entire existence wasn't tied to it, but it was hard work, but it was lighthearted work because I could not necessarily care about the entirety of my existence being hinged on how well I printed a t-shirt or anything else that I did at the warehouse while I was there. So I have to thank Kevin a lot. He didn't really know the circumstances of why I was there, at least in terms of that. But it was a really wonderful thing. And I just left working there in July. And it has been a 2 month process of trying to get myself to this point today of starting over, trying to believe in myself enough to start this video and to be honest about where I've been and where I'm going and what I want to do and use this YouTube channel as a way to hold myself accountable. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have great cameras. Like right now, I'm just talking to my iPhone. And all of my early videos, I was doing those with an iPhone 5. And now I have an iPhone 8 Plus and it shoots 4K. I didn't even know that when I got that. So I'm not a videographer. I'm not a camera person. I'm not a video editor person. So a lot of these I may do as vlogs to where I can just talk to the camera and without editing. So I'll try not to be so verbose and long with this stuff in the future unless I have a really great idea. Because I know sometimes I have a hard time sitting down and watching a 60-minute video. But in any case, let me leave you with these last few things. If you have watched this live stream, thank you. If you have been following my channel and my career for the last several years, thank you. If you have bought a record, a download, a song, any of that stuff, thank you. Thank you so much. If you're a subscriber to this channel, thank you. If you share my videos, thank you. I have gratitude for everybody that has cared enough about what I'm doing. And it doesn't matter if there's a million or if there's 10 or 100. It just matters that I know people care and they're keeping up, and that's the reason to keep doing this. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you don't subscribe to this channel, please subscribe to it. There's just the diatribe of this is what everybody does. I know there's a bell icon. Click on that. I don't know the regularity of what pace of videos I'm about to put out, but I'm about to start putting them out. I don't know if it'll be a daily thing. Hopefully it'll be useful. It's going to be a lot of stuff like I said, about the maintenance of my guitars and what my guitars are and what I've modded on them and what I haven't. My pedal boards and what I use for different stuff. I'm also about to do a thing where I've got to upgrade my Pro Tools studio and some of the new things that I'm using. So I'm going to partner with some friends of mine that are producers and studio owners and do some cross-pollination of like teach me how to do it, because while I'm smart about some things, I'm not the smartest about computers and all of that stuff. And I think that's probably going to be the useful part of the educational component of my channel. The philosophy of like, why do I have a thing? How do I use a thing? And just dealing with, you got to use what you got. Most of the channels that I watch, they're doing well and they're using like brand new monitors and they're using brand new DAWs and brand new interfaces and brand new. And I'm not that guy. I am not that guy. I am going to make music with what I have. And that's sort of a philosophy that I had in college. I went to college for music theory and composition because no matter what, if I have an idea and I have a piece of paper and I have a pencil, I can deal with my ideas. I don't have to have the money to go into a recording studio to record my ideas. I can write it down and I can hand that piece of paper to another musician and they can make it happen. Recording is another problem. I'm happy to be dealing with the arts on that stuff, but ultimately it's about, does it matter that I have Finale on my computer and I can write music that way and publish it that way? Yeah, it does, because the transmission of that is wonderful, but really I can have a pen and a napkin and I can write down an idea and I can transmit those ideas. So I think the functionality of just like how do you navigate, how do you work, how do you do stuff, and watching me go through the processes, I'm taking it all back on and trying to get back to the level of pressure that I put on myself to work in that capacity and really get some things done. I need to get some things done, and this is going to be a part of it. And I'm inviting you on that journey with me and holding me accountable for doing these things. And hopefully, I can hold you accountable too. If you're interested in more day-to-day stuff, there's Instagram. Follow me there at Mike205Martin. I'm on SoundCloud. I'm on Facebook. You can find me in all those places. If you want to buy my music, you can buy it on CD Baby, and I believe my CD Baby is slash Mike Martin 1 or something like that. It's linked in my YouTube channel, so you can totally go there. And I think 205 is on sale right now for like $5.99 for the whole record. So yeah, and there's going to be a store coming, and I'm dealing with Adam Fox, a good friend of mine. He's going to help me get my web channel or my website back up and running and doing all of that stuff. So fresh everything. There's talk of Dreaded Marco music. There's talk. But it's all talk until I start doing, and that's today. That is starting over, and it starts today. It's been a lot of ramping up to get to this point where I can hold my own self accountable to do a thing and start over. But I am starting over. This is daunting. This is terrifying because I don't know what I was. I know what I thought I was supposed to be. I know what my potential was, and I feel like I squandered it, and I feel like I failed. But I know that failure is the road to success. That's it. You have to fail 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times to get to the one thing that actually works. So I'm trying my best to remember that. And if this is another failure, then I'm going to run straight at it and I'm going to fail the fuck out of this. And hopefully that will lead me to the next thing that I figure out how to do better. So hang out with me and watch me fail. I'm going to fuck this up. Watch me do it. And I apologize for cussing, but Vincent was asking me if I curse. And yeah, obviously I curse. So leave a comment if you, I need to be better about answering comments, but leave a comment, send me an email, send me a message. I think YouTube doesn't allow you to send direct messages anymore, but leave me a comment under this video and I will do this. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you, brother. So yeah, follow me on all this stuff. And now I'm going to awkwardly figure out how to shut my phone off to stop this video so I can go do a couple of other things for the evening. And then I will talk at you very soon. I'm looking forward to keeping up with you and your journey and you following me on mine and all of that stuff. So again, thank you again. I'm Mike Martin, and I am a guitar player and a writer and a composer and a person and a failure, just like everybody else. And yeah, I'm okay with it. So thank you for watching the first day of starting over. Thanks. Talk to you soon.